Where were you before Sui?
I was at Facebook.
Oh, cool.
So
okay.
my background, I started as a programming languages researcher.
Yeah.
I did a PhD at University of Colorado. I was looking at programming languages, building automated bug finding tools, and then I joined Facebook and worked on automated bug finding tools for a number of years. Like this was like 2014 when Facebook was doing the big like web to mobile thing and discovering like, oh, there's a lot of issues with the mobile release cycle, and so they love these automated bug finding tools for like keeping move fast and break things alive for longer.
Yes,
and so from doing that, I just developed a lot of opinions about programming languages and software safety. And then so in 2018, I got invited to join the Libra project and lead the effort on smart contracts. And so there, it's like, oh, take all this experience and these ideas I had and put them to work. And so that's where Move came from, created Move, did a lot of the early design implementation, and then fell deeper down the crypto rabbit hole, working with really strong cryptographers and distributed systems folks there. And then after a number of years at Facebook, like we built a lot of great tech at Libra and done research to build even more, but it wasn't going anywhere for regulatory reasons, and then that's when we hopped out to found Mist in late 2021.
Yeah, it's a super exciting story, like the birth of Move and where it came from, and it built so much credibility, and it also put so much attention into that ecosystem, which I guess puts a lot of pressure on you guys because the expectations are really big, right?
Totally.
So what does the scenario look like now where the focus is on adoption and bringing developers into the ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing we care the most about. I think we think that Web3 developer communities are really, really tiny compared to what they could be. You know, you look at the numbers from Electric Capital Developer Report, which I think is the best source. There's like 26,000 crypto developers. This is like laughably tiny. Like, you know, mobile developers, there's like 12 million. Web developers, it's like 16. And of that, like Sui has 5% market share, which is pretty good after only a year. But we're like, you know, not only do we want to have like a much bit higher market share, like we want to have way more than 26,000 developers just on Sui. So what we focus on a lot is thinking about how can we get new folks interested in building on Sui Rails, because Sui can bring things that other platforms or the Web2 platforms couldn't, and then like grow the developer community that way instead of trying to convert other crypto developers, although we do that as well. So Move is a big part of that, where the key thing is that it's really safe. It's a lot harder to make mistakes and to introduce vulnerabilities with Move. And I think that's one of the hardest things about smart contract programming, especially for Web2 developers, because you come in, like, you just have an idea, you want to build a cool product, and then you're like, I've introduced a $1 million vulnerability. Like that just makes it impossible to get started. And so with Move, we try to take as many of those issues off the table as possible. And then we also try to make it really easy to use Move from TypeScript or from languages that these developers are familiar with already. So it's just an easy entry for them instead of being like something fundamentally new and scary.
Do you have like a specific geography focus on where you want developers onboarded into the ecosystem?
So we want folks from all over the world, but I think like, you know, this event like KBW shows like there's just tons and tons of developer energy in Asia specifically. So these are markets that we're very, very focused on, really, really strong folks there. And Sui has a really strong developer community in Asia, particularly in DeFi. And these folks collaborate with each other a lot. And I think like a lot of the cool stuff comes from them working together independently without, you know, me or Mr. folks doing anything. Like next week in Bali, there are two separate Sui like sort of developer houses where there are talks and hackathons and co-working. Yeah, the ecosystem folks just organized it. They did it all on their own, and you know, we provide the tech and they're pushing the boundaries. We try to help them succeed, but I think like, you know, more and more it's becoming a thing unto itself, which we love to see.
What do you think developers are looking at when they're looking to sort of align themselves with an ecosystem? What do you think that they are looking at as differentiators that attracts them?
Yeah, so developers of course care about technology. They care about developer experience. I think like usually that's what makes people first look at Sui. You know, they hear from their friends or like, you know, a former colleague that we took a look at this. I can write code a lot faster. It's also, you have the ultra low latency of Sui. I have transactions that can clear end to end in less than 700 milliseconds. You know, this lets me provide a better experience. It's a lot more Web2-like to my users compared to like waiting for many seconds. And then also tech, like we have this thing called ZK login, which lets you privately send transactions from a Web2 account, like a Google account or a Facebook account, without having to use a separate service. And this is just built into the Sui transaction format. So there it's like, okay, it's way easier to get distribution and have your app go viral without forcing people to install a wallet or go through these crypto frictions first. So I think folks are attracted by that, but then they see our developer community and just like how welcoming and sort of like what great vision those folks have. And then also like the support that Sui Foundation provides for developers in the form of grants, or like that Miston provides in terms of sort of like tech support and brainstorming. And I think like the whole package is what sort of pulls them in. But I think the answer is a little bit different for everyone. It's changing all the time, but I think that's sort of like the broad picture.
And from like a trend perspective, what are you seeing starting to emerge as we've seen the ETF and a lot of new things, institutional interest, there's way more adoption. The space has become a lot more mature.
Yeah.
Arguably you could say things really kicked off a lot with a lot of focus on the speculative side.
Yeah.
The crypto economy now, we're starting to see more utility come into the space.
Yeah.
What sort of things are you seeing from a trend perspective?
So I'll give you a very broad answer and then I'll go into some specifics just so it's just not too abstract. But I think the things that are really going to drive the next wave of adoption are when there are applications that can leverage Web3 powered utility without introducing Web3 friction. So it's like maybe there's a creator monetization angle here. Maybe there's like an ownership or legacy or interoperability angle in a game. But I don't want to use that. I don't want my users to have to go install a wallet. I don't want them to go to exchange to get tokens. I don't want them to, wait forever for transactions. I just want it to be a seamless integration. That's only one small part of what I'm doing. Yeah. And then also to be able to experiment with these things quickly. Like people have ideas about what to do, but anything good gets built via experimentation. Throw stuff at the wall. If it doesn't work, try it again and throw it away. So I think people don't want to convert to being a Web3 app or a Web3 gamer and these things. They want to try it out and see if it provides value. And if it does, great. If not, try something else. So I think these are the things, the broad trends. And then I mentioned some specific areas. I think gaming, I think commerce, I think finance. There's some potential hits in there. But I'm a CTO, so I'm always thinking about sort of the programmability,
yes.
What's fundamentally new offered at that level, and that's the way I think about it.
And in the space that we're in, it's super technological, right? And the early adopters, an analogy would be with, let's say, the Steve Wozniaks of the industry, right? Yeah. So things were super, super technical. Adoption was very difficult because UI and UX was targeted very much so like the Web3 niche world of degens, if you want to say that.
Yeah.
And now it's starting to mature where you've got combinations of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniaks. Yeah. Being on the technical side, do you see that as well, where there's different elements of the teams in the Sui ecosystem that are both very technical but also commercially savvy?
Yeah, so we see that as well, and those are the founders we get most excited about because it's hard to find. Folks, the combination of technical savvy and product sense is very difficult, and then a lot of folks who have product sense aren't technical enough to cut the mustard in this space. So really, that's one of the things I really like about our developer community is I think we do find folks that are like this, and whenever we find someone or we hear an idea, we try to get them really interested and work especially closely with them. And I think it's been difficult too, you mentioned the previous use cases of what drives things. If it's easier to build a business by doing something that's a copy paste or that's not so interesting, people are going to do that instead. Speculation clouds product market fit. And so really it's even more important to find these people who have product vision, are trying to solve real problems, and then just empower them as much as possible. So we're really focused on that.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Sam. Last question. What are your thoughts on Sui in the next couple of years? What do you think is likely to happen, and what is the vision and the goal?
Yeah, so it's a broad question. So definitely our focus on the technical side continues to be performance, pushing the needle on performance so we can get down to Web2 levels and better. Improving distribution, so I talked about ZK login. We have another feature sponsored transactions that takes away the friction in terms of going to exchanges. And then a lot of it is, we talked about expanding the developer group, and then especially helping developers go beyond building a cool MVP or launching something to build successful and sustainable businesses, and then to have that be a proof point for other folks to come into the ecosystem. So my day is a little bit of both. I do a lot of tech work with our tech leads, I work with folks in the ecosystem, but I think the most important thing I do is things that are helping the Sui developer community grow and helping the most successful developers grow their user base and grow their businesses. So a lot of what the future holds, I think, just depends on what are the really attractive projects that we can get to build on Sui and how successful can we help them be. So, just to be more specific here, I've talked about gaming a few times. There's a few games that are just dropping that I think are maybe the potential to be one of those first breakout, super mainstreamy hits on Sui. So there's Society, there's Dark Times, there's Samurai Showdown. These are super high quality, big studio games, but then they're using Sui not just in a very shallow way, but in deep ways. They're using novel features like closed loop tokens and the ZK login. So I think some of the experimentations these games are doing are really going to set the standard for how crypto can provide value for game developers and for their users, and just help us see other things to do. So that's one example, but pick a vertical. I can probably tell you 3 or 4 builders or plays in that space that I'm excited about.
RWA?
RWA, yeah. So that one, we had the big announcement for USDC earlier this week, and I think with RWA, it's a sequence thing. You need the stable coins, then you need the right kind of institutional signing and custody arrangements. You need to have the relationships with the folks who want to issue assets. You need to have ideas that you need to be working with folks where they don't just want to like put something on chain. They have ideas for like, this is why it makes more sense to tokenize this instead of to have it inside. So that's one we're working on, but I'd say it's a longer burn just because there's so many prereqs to get it going.
Yeah. Cool. Well said. Thanks, Sam. Thank you for your detailed answers. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions and conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks, Sam. Key, anything from your side?
I'm just curious about the direction. I've seen certain projects that Sui has selected and is working with right now. What is your thesis on selecting, supporting, and working with projects? You're looking at specific kinds of projects that you're working on.
Yeah. So it's a very mundane answer, but I think a very clear one, which is we look for teams that are trying to solve real problems and that are leveraging what we think are the technological advantages of Sui that you can't get elsewhere. So there, it's like we're providing something for them that they couldn't get somewhere else. We don't want to like be fighting with someone else for market share. They can just be building anywhere. And then also like the more ambitious and the more interesting the problem they're working on is, then the more excited we get about it. So to give one concrete example there, like there was a talk 2 days ago now, I guess, at the Sui Builder House from 3DOS, which is like this really out there idea. So what they do is they have software for 3D printers, and then they basically like, it's a sort of deep in play where they have a network where you can register 3D printers on Sui. That's the supply side. And then you have the demand side of folks that want to get things 3D printed. And this makes sense because like you want to get something 3D printed, it should be 3D printed close to you to minimize shipping costs, and you want to pick the printer that has the characteristics you want and these sorts of things. So they're using Sui to serve as a coordination layer to connect people who want this to people who can do the printing. And so like then, if you're someone who is trying to capitalize on the latest social media trend and like print some merch or like build something cool, like this sort of building block on top of Sui that you can use. So this was one example of sort of like, oh, like this is a bold problem. This isn't something that I would have thought of, but the sort of project we get excited about on Sui. Someone who's doing something no one else is doing. And so then the way Sui helps them is they have ZK login, so none of these users have to install wallets or like deal with the crypto bits. It's just like they're a printer operator, they log in like it normally does, and then they're earning rewards in stable coins, or they're collecting payments in stable coins. All straightforward stuff.
So is there a technical support you provide for non-tech founders, or you only look at tech founders if you can collaborate with them?
Yeah, so we look for product builders, and if they need dev support, like there are dev shops on Sui that we connect them to, we're really just looking for folks trying to solve problems. A lot of times those are folks who have the technical chops, just because we were talking about this earlier, like how technical the space is. But if it's someone who has a product vision or is trying to solve the problem, like we're more than happy to hook them up for that, or at least in the solutions engineering team. Sometimes we put them to work building for folks. So it's basically both. We really care about the problem and less about what the founder's technical or not.
Can you elaborate a little more on the grant program that Sui has?
The command program.
The grant.
Oh, the grant program. So this is a Sui Foundation program, not a Mist and Launch program. But basically, like I would say it's similar to the grant programs that many of these foundations operate. So it's basically like you're looking for builders that are building a public good that maybe doesn't have a natural monetization or revenue model. You're looking for stuff that's novel. You're looking for builders that are in line with Sui. You're looking for folks who are doing educational stuff so that they're bringing the next generation of developers, and then just like trying to make decisions quickly so that they don't have to worry about like, how do I pay my devs? How do I make rent? Like they just get to build on Sui and experiment. And so the program is just like trying to engage with developers as much as possible and support the efforts that are making a difference in the ecosystem.
So what's your level of involvement in these amazing startups in your ecosystem? Do you directly involve with them at some capacity?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time on Telegram doing like technical discussions at these at these in-person conferences. My favorite thing to do is to meet with builders and like talk to them about their product ideas or explore what they're doing in Sui, or what we should do, or also take the feedback the other way. Like what can we do at the programming level, at the platform level to make their jobs easier or to enable new stuff. So it's a lot of that, and that's both the working with folks who are Mist and Labs partners, working with community devs, and then a lot of action that happens on Twitter. So talking to folks there. So just wherever folks want to talk about our Discord, wherever the conversations are, like talking to developers is the most important thing.